The jungle of Vorka Prime slept under twin moons that glowed like silver eyes in the sky. A cold mist crawled across the ground, moving between the roots of giant black trees. The air smelled of ash and wet stone. Somewhere far away, a creature screamed, short and sharp, then silence again. Only one sound remained: the slow steps of a human. Ilara moved carefully through the fog, her boots sinking into soft moss that glowed faint blue. In her hand she carried a small lantern made from crystal shards. The light inside was weak but warm. Her breath formed small clouds as she walked deeper into the jungle. She was not supposed to be here. The army had marked this place as forbidden. Too dangerous, too wild. But Ilara had come every night for the past month, ignoring the warnings, ignoring the fear, because she had made a promise. As she reached a broken stone ridge, she stopped. The silence here was heavy. She could feel eyes on her, watching, waiting. She set the lantern down on a rock and slowly opened a small pouch from her coat. Inside were small pieces of meat soaked in blue serum. She placed them on the ground one by one, then she whispered softly, "It's safe now. I kept my word. Come out." The jungle stayed quiet, only the sound of water dripping from the trees. She waited. Then from the dark, a soft growl. Not a warning, more like fear. Ilara didn't move. Her heart beat faster, but her face stayed calm. She looked toward the sound and saw a shadow shift. Two glowing eyes appeared. Then another pair. And another. The predator cubs had come. They were small, but every motion showed their strength. Smooth muscles under silver fur, claws shining faintly in the light. Their faces were sharp, half cat, half reptile, with glowing markings along their spines. Even young, they were dangerous. A single swipe could cut through armor. Yet tonight they didn't attack. They crept closer, sniffing the air. One of them, smaller than the rest with a broken fang, stepped forward first. Ilara smiled slightly and extended her hand. The cub sniffed her fingers, then rubbed its head against her palm like a cat. "Good boy," she whispered. "You're safe now." The cubs began to eat the food she had brought, quietly, carefully. Their eyes kept turning toward the shadows, afraid of something unseen. Ilara knew what it was, not beasts, not the night humans. 3 weeks ago, the Vorkan War had ended. The humans won. The predator race lost. The empire was destroyed. And the jungles of Vorka Prime were marked for cleansing. Cleansing meant fire. Cleansing meant death for everything that lived here, even the cubs. But Ilara couldn't accept that. She had been a combat medic, one of the few who still believed in mercy. During the war, she had seen too much blood, too many dead faces, human and alien. And one night, she had found something that changed her forever: a dying predator mother. Ilara had been trapped in a crashed medical pod near the jungle edge. The smoke was thick. Her comms were dead. She had crawled through the mud, searching for supplies, when she heard it. A deep, rough breathing sound. The mother was huge. Her skin was cut and burned, her claws broken, but she was still alive, protecting something under her body. Ilara raised her weapon, ready to defend herself. But then she saw them. 3 small cubs. Blind, trembling, crying. The mother spoke through a translator crystal tied around her neck. The voice was deep but weak. "Human, they will kill them. Your kind, promise me. Hide them." Ilara had frozen. She didn't understand at first. "You want me to protect them?" she asked. The mother's breathing grew slower. "Promise me they are innocent," and with that the great creature went still. The jungle swallowed her last breath. Ilara had sat there for hours, holding one of the cubs in her shaking hands. And in that moment she made her choice. She promised. And she never broke promises. Now, weeks later, she was keeping that vow. She had found an abandoned cave system under the jungle and turned it into a shelter. There was water, warmth, and safety from patrols. She came each night with food and supplies. The cubs learned her scent, her voice, her heartbeat. They no longer feared her, only everyone else. As she watched them eat, she smiled softly. But deep inside, fear never left her. Because if anyone discovered this, if the army learned she was hiding predator offspring, they would not only kill the cubs, they would execute her too. To them, these creatures were not children. They were future killers. A faint metallic sound broke the calm. Alara froze. Her hand reached for the weapon on her belt. An old plasma pistol, its charge nearly gone. The cubs lifted their heads, ears twitching. The smallest one let out a low growl. Then came a soft buzzing from above. A drone. Alara grabbed the lantern, covering it quickly with her coat. The jungle turned black again. She crouched beside the cubs, holding her breath. The sound grew louder. A patrol drone scanning the jungle with a white beam of light. She could see its shadow through the fog. A military drone marked with the Human Alliance insignia. "Not now," she whispered. "Please, not now." The cubs pressed against her legs, trembling. One of them made a tiny noise, a frightened cry. The drone's beam turned toward the sound. A bright flash lit up the trees. Alara cursed under her breath, picked up the cub, and rolled behind a large root. The beam swept over the place where they had been. For a few long seconds, the jungle was blindingly white. Then the light moved away again. Alara waited. 10 seconds, 20. The buzzing grew faint, then silent. She didn't move for a whole minute. Finally, she whispered, "It's gone." "We're safe." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it. The drone had seen something. Maybe just heat, maybe motion. But that was enough for the military to send scouts tomorrow. She looked down at the cub in her arms. It was the smallest one, the one with the broken fang. It looked up at her with glowing eyes, trusting her completely. Her throat tightened. "I'll protect you," she whispered. "I promised your mother." She returned the cub to the others and began packing up her supplies. The jungle around her hummed faintly with distant energy, the sound of war machines still clearing the other side of the valley. Fires glowed faintly through the mist, painting the sky orange. She thought of the soldiers back at base, her old friends. They believed she was dead. Maybe that was better. If they knew what she was doing, they would hunt her too. Alara looked up at the twin moons again. Her voice was calm but full of pain. "If anyone finds out, they'll burn this place." The cubs didn't understand her words, but they felt her fear. They pressed closer, making small growls that sounded almost like comfort. She smiled. "Even monsters can be kind," she said softly. Suddenly the ground shook slightly. A rumbling sound echoed through the trees. The cubs froze. Alara turned toward the horizon and saw a faint red light moving in the sky. Not a drone this time, but a dropship, a patrol team. They were coming closer. Alara quickly grabbed her scanner, checking its screen. The dropship signal was clear, and heading directly toward her position. She whispered, "No." "How did they find us?" She looked around. There was no time to hide all traces. The cubs had eaten, leaving marks and scent everywhere. The ship would detect it easily. Her hands trembled. She could run, maybe reach the cave before they arrived. But if they followed her tracks, the cubs would die. Her mind raced. Then she looked at the broken stone ridge nearby, the one with hollow gaps underneath. It wasn't safe, but it could hide them for a while. She crouched, guiding the cubs toward the shadows. "Go," she whispered. "Hide, stay quiet." No sound, the cubs obeyed. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness under the rocks. Their glowing eyes vanished like candles being snuffed out. Alara stayed crouched behind the ridge, her weapon ready, eyes scanning the sky. The dropship's sound grew louder, the hum of engines cutting through the mist. She could see its lights now, sweeping through the trees. Her pulse quickened. Then she saw it, a human insignia projected through the fog, shining against the trees. The words burned into her heart like fire. "Alliance Patrol Sector 9, they were here." Alara pressed her back against the cold stone. The cubs stayed silent below. Every muscle in her body trembled with adrenaline. She whispered to herself, "You can't find them. You won't find them." The ship passed overhead. A blinding white beam cut through the trees, scanning for heat signatures. It stopped for a second near her hiding place. Alara held her breath. The beam stayed, then slowly moved away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sound faded. The dropship disappeared into the clouds again. The jungle returned to silence. Alara fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Her heart pounded so loud she could feel it in her ears. She looked down into the gap where the cubs hid. "It's all right," she whispered. "You're safe. For now." The cubs crawled out slowly, one of them licking her hand. The tension in her chest eased a little. She looked at them, at the children of a race once feared by the entire galaxy, and felt something deep in her soul. Not fear, not guilt, just hope. No one will ever know, she said quietly. No one must know. The wind rustled the trees. Far in the distance, thunder rolled, and there may be something else, something bigger. Ilara didn't move. She just watched the cubs play softly in the moonlight, their silver fur glowing under the mist. The war was over, but her promise had only begun. The night after the patrol, the jungle was too quiet. Even the insects had stopped singing. Ilara sat inside the cave she called home, wrapping bandages around her arm. A small burn mark glowed faintly, a gift from her last encounter with the drone's scan beam. Her reflection in the metal plate beside her looked tired. The skin under her eyes was dark. Her hair was tangled and full of ash, but her gaze stayed sharp. Beside her, the predator cubs slept in a pile, their bodies rising and falling in calm rhythm. The smallest one, the cub with the broken fang, had curled up against her side. Every time he made a small noise, she smiled a little, almost forgetting the war outside. Almost. She reached for her old military datapad. The screen flickered weakly. She typed a few words in a hidden log entry. Entry 89. Patrols are closer now. They almost found us last night. I can't move the cubs yet, too young to travel far. The promise still stands. I'll keep them safe, whatever happens. She closed the pad, her fingers shaking slightly. The promise. It echoed in her head like a drumbeat she could never silence. That night, when the Vorkan mother had died in her arms, Ilara hadn't just said the words. She had felt something more. The alien's blood had touched her skin, glowing blue for a moment, and something in her veins had burned. The translator crystal had shattered, and she had heard a voice inside her mind whisper, "Bound by vow. Until death." She thought it was a dream then, but now she wasn't so sure. Sometimes, when she was far from the cubs, she could feel them. Their hunger, their fear, their warmth. The promise wasn't only spoken, it was alive. Outside the cave, thunder rolled. The ground trembled faintly. Ilara turned toward the sound and frowned. That wasn't thunder. It was engines. She rushed to the entrance and climbed up a rock ledge to look over the valley. In the distance, through mist and broken trees, she saw them. 3 human transport ships hovering over the burned jungle. Bright lights scanned the ground and then fire. The army was burning another section of the forest. A cleansing operation. She clenched her fists. They're getting closer. If the fire spread here, the cubs would have nowhere to go. For hours, she prepared. She packed the emergency rations, sealed the serum containers, and loaded her pistol. She checked every tunnel that led out of the cave, memorizing escape routes. The cubs followed her quietly, sensing the tension. The smallest one, the broken fang cub, stayed close to her leg the whole time. He looked up at her with eyes that seemed almost human. When she finally sat down again, she looked at the metal tag hanging from her neck, her old soldier ID. It still read, Lieutenant Ilara Hayes, Human Alliance Medical Division. She took it off, stared at it for a long moment, and dropped it into the small campfire. The metal hissed, then melted. Ilara Hayes is gone, she whispered. Only the promise remains. Later that night, as the cubs slept again, she heard movement outside. Quiet footsteps, not animals. Too careful, too human. Her pulse spiked. She reached for her pistol and crawled to the cave entrance. She peered out through the ferns. A figure moved through the mist and carrying a scanner device. The figure wore a half-burned uniform with the Alliance insignia on the sleeve. A scout. Ilara's eyes widened. She knew that face, Sergeant Darius Venn. He had served with her during the war. They had shared meals, jokes, fears, and blood. She had watched him drag wounded soldiers from burning ships. He wasn't cruel, but he followed orders, and if he found the cubs, he would call for backup. She aimed her pistol at him. Her hands trembled. Her mind screamed, "Don't shoot!" But she had no choice. Darius stopped, scanning the ground with his device. His voice echoed softly through the jungle. "Ilara, are you there?" Her breath caught in her throat. He looked straight toward the cave. "I know you're alive. I found your old med pod, and your handwriting on a ration box. Just talk to me, please." She didn't answer. "Not yet. Command says you deserted," he continued. "They think you went mad." But I know you. You wouldn't run without a reason. She slowly stepped out of the shadows, keeping her pistol low but ready. Darius, she said quietly. He turned sharply, raising his light. His eyes widened. Ilara, it's really you. You. Then he saw the cub behind her peeking from the cave. The smile vanished from his face. What is that? Ilara moved in front of the cub. Don't, she warned. They're just children. Darius stared in disbelief. Predator cubs? You're hiding them? Ilara, are you insane? Those things killed. They didn't, she snapped. Their parents did. These are only babies. He took a cautious step forward. If Command finds out, they'll kill them, she finished coldly. That's why they can't know. The silence between them stretched. Only the hum of burning forests far away filled the air. Darius lowered his weapon slightly. His voice softened. You're risking everything for them, why? Ilara looked down at the cub, who pressed closer to her leg. Her voice broke slightly. Because I made a promise. To their mother. She saved me once, and when she could have killed me. I can't break my word. Not now, Darius sighed. He looked around the jungle, then back at her. You're putting yourself in danger. If I don't report this, then don't, she whispered. Please. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. I'll buy you time, he said. But you have to move. They're sweeping this whole region tomorrow. Ilara's eyes softened. Thank you, Darius. He turned to leave, but before he disappeared into the mist, he looked back once more. You always were too kind for this world, Ilara. Don't let it kill you. Then he was gone. The next morning, Ilara was already on the move. She packed everything she could carry. The cubs followed, silent and scared. Smoke filled the sky now. The fire was close. They climbed down into a ravine covered with glowing moss. Streams of strange blue water ran between black rocks. It was beautiful and dangerous. The moss could hide their heat signatures, but the air was toxic for long exposure. She wrapped filters around the cubs' necks, pieces of old fabric soaked in herbs. We'll rest soon, she whispered. Just a little more, but deep down she knew she was lying. There was nowhere truly safe anymore. That night, as they camped under a fallen tree, Ilara looked at the cubs sleeping again. Their small claws twitched in dreams. The broken fang cub curled beside her arm, his tail wrapped around her wrist. She closed her eyes and felt something. A memory not her own. The Vorkon mother whispering through her mind. They are my blood. Now they are yours. Protect them. Promise kept. Promise bound. Ilara gasped and sat up. Her hand glowed faint blue for a second, then dimmed. She stared at it, trembling. What did you do to me? She whispered to the air. No answer. Only the hum of alien wind through the leaves. But she understood now. The vow wasn't just emotional. It was biological. Somehow the mother's dying blood had changed her, linking her to the cubs. If they died, she would die too. By the third night, exhaustion started to break her. Her steps were slow, her eyes hollow. She hadn't eaten properly in days. But the cubs needed her. Every time one of them stumbled, she carried it on her back. When they were cold, she gave them her jacket. When they cried, she hummed old earth lullabies, the only thing she could remember from home. You'll grow strong, she whispered to them. And free. You'll see the stars one day. The broken fang cub purred softly, pressing his head against her chest. Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she felt like a mother. But hope never lasted long on Vorka Prime. At dawn, the sky flashed bright red. Ilara turned and saw 3 Alliance ships hovering over the ridge. They were closer than ever. Then her wrist communicator buzzed Darius's signal. She opened the channel. His voice was urgent. Ilara, they know. Someone leaked my report. They're tracking your energy readings. You have less than a day. Her heart dropped. I can't move fast enough, she said. The cubs, then hide them. Whatever happens, don't let them be seen. The transmission cut off. Ilara stared at the horizon. The ships were moving in formation. Soldiers rappelled down on the far side of the jungle. She had no time left. She turned to the cubs. Listen, she said softly. You have to trust me again. They looked up, confused. She led them to a deep cave under the ravine wall. Inside, the air shimmered faintly with energy, an old Vorkon force field still working. It was weak, but enough to block scanners. She placed her hand on the glowing stone, whispering an activation code she had learned from the mother's memories. The field hummed alive. "Stay here. Don't come out until I return," the cubs whimpered. The smallest one grabbed her sleeve with his claws, refusing to let go. Her heart ached. "I'll come back," she said. "I promise." She gently freed herself and stepped out of the cave. The jungle around her was already burning again. Smoke rose red and silver under the morning sun. She looked back once, went at the dark entrance where the cubs hid, and whispered, "No one can know. Not yet." Then she vanished into the mist, heading toward the approaching soldiers. Far behind her, inside the cave, the cubs huddled together. The broken fang cub looked at the glowing stone door and let out a small, sad cry. Outside, thunder echoed again, but this time, it wasn't from storms. It was the sound of engines and fire, and the promise that once saved them was about to be tested. Smoke covered the sky like a storm made of fire. The jungle of Vorka Prime was dying. Ash fell softly on Alara's shoulders as she moved through the burning trees. Her face was pale from heat and fear, her pistol shaking in her hand. The air smelled of death, sharp metal and melted roots. Behind her, the hidden cave shimmered faintly, protecting the predator cubs. They were safe for now, but only if she kept the soldiers away. She stopped near a ridge and looked down. Through the thick fog, she could see the Alliance troops spreading out in a line. Their armor glowed with blue lights, scanning everything. Drones circled above them, humming like angry bees. At the front walked Commander Rel, tall and cold-eyed, holding a plasma rifle. His voice echoed through the mist. "Search every meter. The deserter is here, and she's hiding something alive." Alara's stomach twisted. They knew. She crouched behind a fallen trunk, whispering to herself, "You can't find them. Not today." She checked her pistol. One full charge left. That was all. Enough for one shot. The soldiers moved closer. Every step they took made the jungle tremble. Alara closed her eyes and took a slow breath. She could almost hear the cubs' hearts beating inside her mind. Fast, scared. The bond she shared with them pulsed like electricity through her veins. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'll protect you." Then she stepped out from behind the tree and into the open. "Stop!" She shouted. The soldiers froze. Dozens of helmets turned toward her. Commander Rel raised his weapon instantly. "Lieutenant Alara Hayes," he said through the speaker. "You're under arrest for desertion and interference with cleansing operations." Alara raised her hands, keeping the pistol hidden behind her back. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. There are innocent lives here." Rel's eyes narrowed. "Innocent? This planet is full of monsters." "Not all of them," she said quietly. "Some are just children." Murmurs ran through the soldiers. One of them, a young recruit, lowered his rifle slightly. "Sir, she said children. Silence!" Rel snapped. His cold gaze locked on Alara. "You've been compromised. Whatever you found here, it's dangerous." He raised his rifle. "Step away from the area." Alara took a step forward instead. "If you destroy this jungle, you'll start another war." "The war is over," Rel said. "We won it." Alara's voice hardened. "Then act like it." The commander's eyes darkened. "Enough," he said. "Take her." The soldiers advanced. Alara fired her pistol once, not to kill but to scatter them. A beam of blue plasma hit a tree and exploded into light. The soldiers ducked. She ran toward the other side of the ridge, disappearing into the smoke. Rel shouted orders. "After her. She's protecting something." The chase began. Alara ran through broken roots, jumped over fallen trunks, and slid down muddy slopes. Her lungs burned, her ears filled with the sound of drones overhead. A plasma bolt struck the ground near her. She stumbled, rolled, and came up bleeding from her arm, but she didn't stop. She could feel the cub's fear growing inside her mind. The connection was burning her from the inside. She reached the clearing near the old temple ruins. Massive stones covered in alien runes. This place once belonged to the Vorkan Alphas, the ancient rulers of the planet. Now it would be her last stand. She hid behind one of the fallen pillars, breathing hard. She pressed a hand to her chest. Her heartbeat was wild. The whisper in her mind grew louder. Bound by vow. Until death, her body shook. The glow under her skin pulsed brighter. She understood now. The blood bond was waking. If she died here, the cubs would feel it. If they died, she would too. The first soldiers entered the clearing. Lights flickered through the fog. They moved slowly, weapons raised. "She's here somewhere," one of them shouted. Alara looked around desperately. She couldn't run anymore, but maybe she didn't have to. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the broken translator crystal, the one she had taken from the predator mother long ago. It still hummed faintly. She closed her eyes and whispered into it, "If you can hear me, please, I kept your children safe. I kept my promise." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground trembled. A deep, echoing roar rolled across the valley, a sound so powerful that every soldier froze. The trees shook. Dust fell from the ruins. The roar came again, closer this time. Rel turned sharply. "What the hell was that?" The jungle answered with thunder. From the fog, a massive shadow emerged, glowing silver eyes, claws like blades, a body covered in scars and thick armor like hide. The alpha predator. The soldiers panicked. "It's impossible," one of them screamed. "They're extinct." The alpha's roar split the air. The sound made the trees bend. One of the drones exploded mid-air. Rel shouted, "Open fire!" Blue plasma bolts filled the clearing. The alpha moved like a storm, a fast, deadly, unstoppable. It tore through the soldiers' ranks with claws that flashed like lightning. Armor cracked, weapons fell. The air filled with the smell of metal and ozone. Alara watched in shock and awe. The alpha wasn't attacking her. It moved around her, guarding her. Her heart pounded. "You came back," she whispered. The massive creature turned its head toward her. For a moment, its glowing eyes softened. In that gaze, she saw the same eyes as the cubs, the same life, the same soul. The alpha was their father. The soldiers tried to regroup, but their weapons were useless. Rel raised a heavy cannon and fired. The blast hit the alpha's chest, sending it crashing into a pillar. The creature roared in pain. Alara screamed, "Stop! You're making it worse." Rel turned his weapon toward her. "You don't understand what these things did. They killed thousands." Alara stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "And how many have we killed, Commander?" "You call it cleansing, and I call it murder." Rel hesitated. His grip on the trigger loosened. But before he could answer, the alpha rose again, glowing brighter, its energy surging. It let out one final roar that shattered the cannon in his hands. The shockwave threw everyone to the ground. When the dust cleared, Rel was gone. Only the sound of fire and breathing filled the air. Alara stood trembling. The alpha limped toward her. Its body was covered in burns, but its eyes were calm. She took a step closer, whispering, "I kept them safe." Just like she asked, the alpha lowered its head, a gesture of respect. Then it spoke in a low, rumbling voice through the broken translator crystal. "Promise. Kept." Ilara's eyes filled with tears. "Take them," she said softly. "They're waiting for you." The alpha nodded slowly. It looked toward the jungle, and suddenly the air shimmered. The cubs appeared, running toward her. They had broken through the shield drawn by the bond. The smallest cub, the one with the broken fang, ran straight to her arms. He looked up at her with glowing eyes full of love and sadness. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. The alpha knelt down beside her, lowering its massive hand. The cubs climbed onto it, chirping softly. Alara placed her hand on the alpha's claw. The glow in her veins pulsed again, then slowly began to fade. The bond was releasing. "Go," she said, "before they come again." The alpha looked at her one last time, then turned toward the burning horizon. With a final roar, it vanished into the mist with the cubs. The ground shook one last time, then silence. Alara stood alone among the ruins. The fire around her began to die. Smoke drifted into the sky like ghosts. Her body felt weak. The light in her veins flickered. She could feel the bond breaking completely now, the last piece of the promise leaving her. She smiled faintly. "They're free now," she whispered. "That's all that matters." She fell to her knees. The blue light around her faded into the soil, glowing like stars in the dirt. Hours later, when the rescue team arrived, they found only ashes and silence. The clearing was empty, no body, no weapons, no sign of life. But in the center of the ruins, they found something strange. A handprint burned into the stone, human in shape but surrounded by glowing alien symbols. The soldiers didn't understand it. They marked the place as contaminated and left. Days later, the fires stopped. The jungle began to heal. And in the far distance, under another twin moon night, A figure walked beside 4 small creatures glowing softly in the mist. No one knew if it was a dream or a story told by frightened scouts. But those who claimed to see her swore the same thing. A human woman walking beside predator cubs, their protector, their mother, their promise keeper.